Money is the root of all evil. Money can't buy happiness, but I'd rather be crying in my Porsche. With these sayings common around us, why do we spend so much time working for it? And what I'm going to discuss in this video, what does the science tell us about money and its correlation with happiness? You've seen this triangle, first proposed by a psychologist named Maslow way back in 1943. This triangle has been hailed as the footpath to self-fulfillment. It ranks a series of human needs that need to be met before personal self-fulfillment can be achieved, and it permeates how businesses manage people. But where does money fit into this? Is money required for self-fulfillment, for happiness, for feelings of self-worth and well-being? On one hand, it's a personal question. Can you rise up this triangle without money? It's certainly possible to. If I lived off the land, off-grid for instance, in a cabin somewhere, I would trade my time and hard work for these basic needs: shelter, food, security, and maybe in time, that would lead me to happiness and self-fulfillment. Wouldn't require money per se, just lots of effort and hard work. Happiness is subjective. It means different things to each of us. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman, 2006, described the correlation between happiness to income as a focusing illusion, that no one factor, including money, matters that much in the big picture of living our daily lives. But just by asking people the question, does the amount of money you make or wealth you possess affect your happiness? Kind of like what I'm doing here. Kahneman says, you are forcing people to incorrectly over-focus on the relationship between happiness and money, a focusing illusion. Imagine if I asked you how important are houseplants to your self-worth. You might wrongly overemphasize the importance of houseplants in your life simply because I suggested it. Kahneman revisited the matter 3 years later in 2009, this time with economist Angus Deaton. They reviewed 450,000 respondents from Gallup polls where respondents gave answers to questions of happiness and how their lives were going. Most of them, 85% of them, responded that they felt happy each and every day. Just 4 in 10 respondents reported feeling stressed, and a quarter reported feeling sadness. The researchers concluded that high incomes don't bring you happiness, but it does bring you a life you think is better. Based on correlations between happiness and incomes by the 450,000 respondents, Deaton and Kahneman concluded that $75,000 was the annual income amount where money ceased to influence self-fulfillment. Earning under $75K annually meant the grind of daily life and the financial worry that comes with it was more likely to negatively affect respondents. So in layman's terms, we perceive to be happier with incomes up to $75,000. Now, is perception reality? That feels like a blue pill, red pill, existential philosophy type question, which I won't get into in this video, but it's a fun one to ask yourself. If perception is your reality, then earning up to $75K should bring you happiness benefits. Other researchers have found similar results. Economist Richard Laird told us that absolute income probably only matters at the lowest income levels. These levels where a person is barely scraping to survive. Check out this data from a 2002 study showing the correlation between happiness and income from around the world. Notice the poorest areas of Calcutta, India, had the highest correlation, backing up Laird's point about absolute income mattering the most as a person approaches the poverty line. Beyond that, a bigger influence in absolute income was how people saw themselves compared to their reference group, or how they saw themselves compared to peers, and how money intersected with that comparison. This thinking goes back to a 1949 study by Dusenberry, how many of us compare our possessions to our neighbor's possessions, even unintentionally, whether it be cars, clothes, or something grand like how high end of a liquor do they drink compared to ourselves. We don't intend to make these comparisons, it's just human nature. These studies, the Laird one and the two by Kahneman, build on each other, a bit methodical, progress like a water wheel in a stream, churning ideas that are related and support each other. But these studies and inquiries have been spawned from one very significant and controversial study in the 70s. The first study, where an economist took Maslow's principles and asked, how does income fit into this? The guy's name was Richard Easterlin, and the results of this study are known as the Easterlin paradox. Easterlin said that the relationship between income and happiness over time varies as you look from country to country. But that over time, there's generally no correlation between the two, between happiness and income. Now, this conclusion has been heavily disputed in the last 50 years, and based on what I read, it seems like Easterlin's paradox is kind of on the outs. In researching this topic, I looked at some 35 different studies. Like a lot of statistics-based measurements, a slight change in input data can result in a giant change in the results. Some studies look at materialistic happiness versus value-based happiness. Others evaluate the individual's reference society and their importance of income to a person, or looking at short versus long-term changes in prosperity. After reviewing all of these, the conclusion seems obvious that it's very relative to each unique person. It's relative to you, your experiences, and your expectations. But what I would encourage you to do is think about what level of income allows you to comfortably meet your first two basic needs, those of food, shelter, security, and the one that I think is in paramount importance, that of rest. I don't mean rest in that you get to sleep in, but rest in that you feel mentally secure in your income and investments, because I think once you can satiate that mental need, your feeling of rest and at ease will allow you to focus on the higher levels of attainment. Those of relationships with family and friends, those of accomplishing goals that are near and dear to you, and maybe those of reaching self-actualization. So take a few minutes and introspect on what that financial number might be for you. I think that many who define this rather ambiguous number will see that it is actually lower than what you might imagine. With this number defined, I think you can better craft how hard you want to work, what field you want to work in, and where you want to focus your investment dollars. Let me know in the comments down below if you've come up with some unique or cool ideas on how to invest in your mental well-being, your happiness, your investment portfolio, and its profile. I love hearing about your ideas. Thanks for joining on this analysis. I hope you got some value out of it, and I will see you on the next one.